Welcome to the programme. Good to have you with us. Our top story tonight, security concerns are growing in the Persian Gulf following the seizure of a foreign oil tanker by Iran's Revolutionary Guard. State television says Iranian forces responded to a distress call issued by the tanker on Sunday and then discovered it was smuggling 1 million litres of fuel. The US is calling for the immediate release of the ship that's being held in the midst of a diplomatic standoff between Iran and the UK now. Authorities in the British Overseas Territory of Gibraltar seized an Iranian tanker earlier this month for alleged sanctions violations. Tehran demanded its release with promises of retaliation from the Islamic Republic's supreme leader if it wasn't. Iran has yet to confirm the origin of the tanker that it seized, but authorities in London say that the ship is not British flagged. Well, let's take a look at that area in the Gulf. It's known as the Strait of Hormuz. It's at the centre of all of this. This is where Iran seized this tanker. It's one of the world's most vital shipping corridors, and it was just south of Larak Island that you see here, which is just outside the maritime border in the Strait. Well, last week, the UK increased its naval presence in this region, and it also raised the threat level to British shipping vessels passing through Iranian waters. Well, for more on this dispute, I'm joined now by Dr. Andreas Krieg. He's an assistant professor of security in the Middle East at King's College, London. Evening to you, Dr. Krieg. Thanks very much for joining us tonight. I don't want to get bogged down in this particular incident because much of it would be speculation at this stage. But, of course, it is the latest in a series of escalating actions in the Gulf, in the Strait of Hormuz. Who do you hold most responsible for that escalation?
Well, I mean, this escalation has been going on for a year now, and I think the source of all this escalation is definitely the maximum pressure campaign that we've seen coming from the Trump administration after basically withdrawing unilaterally from the JCPOA, the nuclear agreement with Iran. I think since then, the new sanctions that have been imposed and have just been increased in May this year have basically taken any breath or any oxygen away from the Islamic Republic to breathe. The economic pressure is very high and is mostly affecting, obviously, the civilians. And the consequence of that, as the Iranians are saying, are just as bad as a military escalation. So they're saying the new sanctions regime imposed by the US are actually an act of war, and they're responding to maximum pressure with further pressure, as they're saying. They, as an insurgency revolutionary regime, have said that for 40 years they've not done anything else than resistance. And to maximum pressure, they will show maximum resistance. And I think the escalation we've seen over the last 2 months in the Strait of Hormuz are part of that Iranian campaign to fight back and show maximum resistance.
And, of course, meanwhile, we've got some of the other signatories of that 2015 nuclear deal standing by and watching. I'm thinking of the European countries. Isn't it time, do you think, that Europe decides whether it's going to back the US and impose more sanctions, or whether it's going to honour the terms of that 2015 nuclear deal and ease those sanctions on Iran? Why is it taking so long for Europe to decide?
Well, I mean, it's not that simple. I think Europe has already decided. The big three, that is France, Germany and the United Kingdom, have made up their mind and said that they would stick to the deal and they want the deal to survive. The problem with that is obviously that the Europeans have to come up with a means and ways to allow the benefits that were part of that deal that allowed the Iranians to actually come to the negotiation table. The Europeans have to find a way for these benefits to actually materialize for the Iranians, because obviously with the new sanction regime in place, the Iranian regime is worse off than they were before the JCPOA. So the Europeans have now said that they were trying to come up with a mechanism allowing for investments to come into Iran, which are very, very highly needed. But actually, none of that has actually transpired so far. Also because I think the Europeans have underestimated completely how difficult it will be to circumvent sanctions that are basically leveraged by the United States. Because these sanctions mean that anyone who violates these sanctions, any European company that wants to do business with Iran would eventually violate the sanctions and could not be doing business in the United States. So that risk no European company is obviously willing to take, considering that what they can make in terms of money they can make in Iran is peanut.
Yeah, absolutely. And, well, I guess we're going to see whether that leads to more escalation in the Gulf. Thank you very much. Good to talk to you. Dr. Andreas Krieg there from King's College, London.